So, what if I told you that a country's multi-billion-dollar plan to help the poor was actually helping the rich more? It sounds wild, right? Well, that's the huge debate happening in Algeria right now, and the answer could completely change its social safety net.
Look, Algeria spends billions every single year on social programs. The goal is obviously to help its citizens. But there's a growing feeling that a massive piece of the support, especially these huge subsidies, isn't getting to the people who truly need it. This has kicked off a search for a better, more direct way. And one of the boldest ideas on the table is something called universal basic income.
Okay, so why is such a radical idea even being considered? To get that, we first need to take a quick look at the country's economy and its long-standing promise of a strong state-backed social contract. And you can really see that promise in the numbers. Back in 2019, Algeria's spending on social programs was a whopping 8.6% of its entire GDP. Now, that is a serious investment, way higher than the average for Arab states. But to really get the picture, we need to see where that money's going and what's powering the whole system. This really shows you the two sides of Algeria's economy. On one hand, the parts of the economy that aren't oil and gas are growing nicely at about 4.2%. That's great. But the country is still super reliant on its hydrocarbon exports, and that dependency makes its public finances, including all that social spending, really vulnerable when global energy prices go on a roller coaster. It's why making sure every dollar is spent efficiently is so critical. And this economic reality brings us right to the main event, the subsidy dilemma. The real heart of the problem with Algeria's social support system is buried in its massive and often pretty inefficient subsidy programs. The numbers from 2021 are just staggering. The total budget for subsidies was $23.7 billion. And as you can see, a massive 85% of that went to energy, with another 13% for food. These are what you call blanket subsidies, which means they lower prices for absolutely everyone, rich and poor alike. The idea is to make life more affordable, but the way it works out is, well, it's pretty flawed. And here it is. This is the fundamental problem. Even though these programs are meant to help the poor, they actually end up benefiting wealthier families way more. It's just simple math, really. Wealthier households just consume more. They have more cars, so they use more subsidized fuel. They live in bigger houses, so they use more subsidized electricity. In fact, one study found the richest 20% of Algerians get 6 times more in fuel subsidies than the poorest 20%. The system is just leaking money away from the people who need it most. This massive inefficiency has forced a total rethink, and it's brought an idea that used to be on the fringe right into the center of the policy debate: universal basic income, or UBI. So, what is UBI? Well, in theory, it's pretty simple. It's just a regular cash payment that the government gives directly to every single citizen. That's it. It's universal, meaning you get it no matter how rich or poor you are, and it's unconditional, so you don't have to be working or looking for a job. Think of it as a basic financial floor for everyone. When you put the two systems side by side, the difference is just night and day. On one side, you have the current system, this complicated, messy web of price controls where the money accidentally flows uphill to the wealthy. And on the other side, you have the UBI proposal, a simple, direct cash payment that's exactly the same for everybody. It's a potential jump from complexity and unfairness to simplicity and equity. Okay, that all sounds pretty good in theory, right? But it brings us to the elephant in the room. Can it actually work? I mean, what about the money? Let's dive into the numbers. This is it, the multi-billion-dollar question that makes or breaks the whole idea. A universal payment for every single citizen sounds incredibly expensive. Is this just a pipe dream, or is it actually doable? So, researchers ran the numbers on a few different UBI plans for Algeria. This number you see here, 9.3% of GDP, is what the least generous version would cost. In this scenario, every adult gets a payment equal to 70% of the extreme poverty line, and children get nothing. So we're talking about a very basic floor here, not a life of luxury. And this is where the conversation gets really interesting. When you put that 9.3% price tag next to what Algeria is already spending, the numbers are almost identical. That 8.6% of GDP spent on social transfers in 2019 is right in the same ballpark. All of a sudden, UBI doesn't look like some unaffordable fantasy. It looks more like a reallocation of money that's already being spent. The question isn't, can we afford this anymore? It's, is this a better way to spend the money we already have? But, even if the costs are similar, making a change this big is never simple. And that brings us to the final and maybe most important question in this whole debate.
It turns out the biggest challenge isn't just financial, it's political and it's strategic. How do you actually switch to a UBI system in a country where millions of people are used to the old subsidies?
So, policymakers are at this huge fork in the road. Option 1, you completely replace the old, inefficient subsidies with a new direct UBI payment. That's the clean, simple solution. But it's also politically explosive. If you suddenly make fuel and food prices jump, you could cause a massive shock and hurt the very people you're trying to help. Then there's option 2. You complement the old system. You add UBI on top of the subsidies. This is much safer politically and protects people during a transition, but it's also way more expensive and, it keeps the broken system in place. There's just no easy answer.
And that kind of leaves us here. This whole debate in Algeria over subsidies versus UBI is about so much more than just economics. It's a fundamental question about the relationship between a country and its people. Could swapping out indirect, leaky subsidies for direct, universal cash not only fight poverty better, but also build a totally new, more transparent social contract for the 21st century? The answer to that question could truly reshape the nation's future.